Hello. Today I want to talk about the great Norwegian artist Edvard Munch. Edvard Munch was born on the 12th of December 1863 in Oten, Norway. He's the son of Dr. Christian Munch and his wife Laura. He had three sisters, Sophie, Laura, and Inga, and a brother called Andreas. At the age of 5, Munch's mother died of tuberculosis. His father sank into a deep depression, so his wife's sister Karen took over the running and management of the house. But the tragedy was compounded when in 1887 Munch's sister Sophie also died of tuberculosis. She was 15 years old, he was 14. If that wasn't enough, his younger sister Laura had mental issues in her teenage years and spent a large part of her life institutionalized in mental health hospital. It is not surprising that sickness and death left a permanent mark on Munch's childhood, particularly the death of his sister Sophie, whose suffering later expressed in his painting, The Sick Child. These family issues contribute to Munch's on and off struggles with mental illness and alcoholism, as well as providing the inspiration for some of his most influential paintings. Munch left school at the age of 16 and decided to study engineering, but the following year quit his studies after deciding he wanted to be a painter. In early 1881 he began to attend the Christiania Drawing Academy and also sold his first 2 paintings. A couple of years later he rented a studio in Christiania, now known as Oslo, with 6 other art students. They were lucky enough to receive support and instruction from naturalist painter and illustrator Christian Crow. Initially, Munch's work was heavily influenced by Crow's naturalist paintings. Munch exhibited at the Oslo Autumn Exhibition for first time in 1883 and in 1885 showed work at the Antwerp World Exhibition. During this period, he worked on 3 major paintings: The Day After, Puberty, and A Sick Child. Nevertheless, in 1886 Munch showed several paintings including The Sick Child at the Oslo Autumn Exhibition, and the public were horrified. It is difficult to understand now why the painting provoked such a violent and angry response when it was first shown. Today, the subject seems quite conventional, but notice the use of complementarica, the red of the hair clashing with the greens of the dress. In most of Munch's paintings, he abandons the use of localized color and uses primary and complementary colors instead, because these color combinations have much greater expressive power. What perhaps is more significant is that Munch became increasingly reluctant to paint realistic background, so his figures seem to be in some indeterminate space. This is interesting because it makes us focus much more on the psychology, the thoughts and emotion of the figures, and less on their particular situation. Later, in 1889 Munch had his solo exhibition in Oslo. It was very successful and led to Munch being offered a state grant to study drawing with Léon Bonnat in Paris. But shortly after arriving in France, Munch's father died, and his grief pushed him into deep depression and heavy drinking, so much so he was unable to paint for months. However, in 1890 he moved back to Oslo and painted Spring Day on Karl Johan Street. This was very much influenced by Seurat's pointillist neo-impressionist style. It was during this year, 1893, he created his most famous painting, The Scream, which is an integral part of his frieze of life. There are over 50 versions of The Scream, paintings and prints, other than the painting that display in TH National Gallery in Oslo. The Scream represents and deals with the fear and loneliness of man in a natural setting. In Munch's diary, there is an entry which describes the event on which the painting is based. It reads, "I was walking with friends when the sun began to set and suddenly the sky turned blood red. I paused, feeling exhausted, and leaned on a fence. There was blood and tongues of fire above the blue, dark, fear and the city. My friends walked on, and there I stood, trembling with fear, and I sensed an endless scream passing through nature. In the months before he died, Munch painted self-portrait between the clock and the bed. Ironically, he looks the man who has held himself back from the dance of life. He appears awkwardly squashed between the grandfather clock and the bed and looking as though he shouldn't be occupying the space. On the 12th of December 1943, tributes poured in his 80th birthday, but he was suffering from a severe cold which he failed to recover from. Munch died peacefully in his sleep on the 23rd of January 1944. In his will he left his entire estate to the city of Oslo. His bequest consisted of 1,150 paintings, 17,800 prints, 4,500 watercolors and drawings, 13 sculptures, as well as writings and literary notes. The collection formed the basis of the Edvard Munch Museum, which opened in Oslo in 1963 to celebrate the centenary of his birth. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you have really enjoyed learning about Edvard Munch, the masterpiece.